The USS Enterprise D was conducting a routine astronomical survey of the Calendra sector when reality itself began to scream. "Captain, I'm detecting a massive subspace distortion," Lieutenant Commander Data announced from his operations console, his golden eyes fixed on readings that climbed beyond standard parameters. "The dimensional variance is increasing exponentially." Captain Jean-Luc Picard rose from his command chair, tugging his uniform jacket into place with practiced ease. On screen. The main view screen rippled, then displayed something that shouldn't exist, a tear in the fabric of space, bleeding crimson and gold light that pulsed like a living heartbeat. Energy cascaded from the wound in reality, sending waves of exotic particles across the Enterprise's forward sensors. "Shields up," Picard ordered. "Mr. Worf, analysis." The Klingon security chief's fingers moved across his tactical console, his ridged brow furrowing deeper with each passing second. "Captain, the energy signature is unlike anything in our database. It reads as both matter and energy simultaneously. Sensors cannot determine what." The rift exploded outward. A shockwave of psionic force slammed into the Enterprise like the fist of an angry god. The bridge lights flickered. Consoles sparked. Lieutenant Commander Deanna Troi gasped and collapsed from her chair, her empathic senses overwhelmed by something vast and terrible and achingly human all at once. "Counselor!" Picard moved to her side, but Troi was already struggling to her feet, her dark eyes wide with terror and wonder. "Captain, I felt someone. A mind. But it's so powerful, so much pain and fear and—" She steadied herself against her console. "There's something else. Something ancient. Something that burns. Captain, I'm detecting a biological signature within the anomaly." Data reported. "Humanid. Female. Life signs are weak but stable. She's drifting toward us." Through the view screen, they could see her now, a woman suspended in the void, her red hair floating around her head like a corona of fire. She wore strange clothing, torn and scorched, and her body was surrounded by a faint golden aura that flickered like a dying flame. "Transporter room, this is the bridge," Picard said, activating his comm badge. "Prepare to beam the individual directly to sickbay. Establish a level 5 containment field." "Aye, Captain," Chief O'Brien's voice responded. "Locking on now." "Sir, her energy signature is interfering with the transporter beam. I'm compensating, but she's fighting the lock." "Is she conscious?" "I don't think so, sir. It's more like her body is reacting instinctively." "Attempting transport now." The woman on the view screen shimmered and vanished in a cascade of golden light that was distinctly not standard transporter effect. "O'Brien to bridge. Transport successful, but Captain, you need to see this. The transporter logs are—" "They're impossible." Picard exchanged glances with his first officer, Commander William Riker, who had remained silent throughout the crisis, his blue eyes fixed on the now empty space where the woman had floated. "Number 1, you have the bridge. Data, Worf, Counselor, with me." They found Dr. Beverly Crusher standing 3 meters from the primary biobed in sickbay, her medical tricorder held before her like a shield. Behind the shimmering blue containment field, the woman lay unconscious, her chest rising and falling with shallow breaths. The golden aura had faded but not disappeared. It pulsed in time with her heartbeat, visible even to the naked eye. "Beverly?" Picard approached cautiously. "Jean-Luc, I've never seen anything like this," Crusher said quietly. "Her cellular structure is human, or so close to human that the differences are negligible. But there's something else. An energy signature woven through every molecule of her body. It's keeping her alive, but it's also—" She gestured at her readings. "It's rewriting the laws of biology as we understand them." Deanna Troi moved closer to the containment field, her empathic senses reaching out carefully. "I can feel her emotions. She's terrified. Dreaming. She's trying to find her way home, but she doesn't know where home is anymore." "Can you sense anything else?" Picard asked. Troy's expression darkened. "Yes. The other presence. It's sleeping now, but it's aware. It knows we're here. And Captain. She turned to face him. It's judging us. The woman's eyes snapped open. They were incandescent green, burning with inner fire that had nothing to do with normal human physiology. She sat up with fluid grace, her gaze sweeping across the sickbay, taking in the unfamiliar technology, the strange uniforms, the containment field that held her. Where am I? Her voice was steady despite the confusion in her eyes. This isn't the mansion. This isn't Earth. I can feel. She pressed a hand to her temple. The thoughts. So many thoughts. So organized. Disciplined. You're not mutants. You're not even from my world. I am Captain Jean-Luc Picard of the Federation Starship Enterprise. Picard said, keeping his voice calm and measured. You appeared through a dimensional rift in our space. You're aboard our medical facility. We mean you no harm, but we need to understand what happened. The woman studied him with eyes that seemed to see far more than they should. My name is Jean Grey. And I think I've done something terrible. The golden aura around her body suddenly flared bright enough to cast shadows across the sickbay. Alarms shrieked. The containment field buckled. I can't control it. Jean whispered, her voice breaking. The Phoenix, it's waking up. You need to get everyone away from me. Now. If you want to see more characters enter the Star Trek universe, hit that subscribe button and drop the name of a character you'd want to see in the comments below. Live long and prosper. The golden light blazed brighter, and somewhere in the depths of Jean Grey's consciousness, something ancient and infinite opened one burning eye. The containment field shattered. Golden fire erupted from Jean Grey's body in concentric waves, washing over the sickbay like a tidal surge of pure energy. Dr. Crusher stumbled backward, her medical instruments sparking and dying. Worf moved instinctively to shield Captain Picard, his hand reaching for a phaser that would be utterly useless against what was happening. But the fire didn't burn. It passed through them like warm sunlight, carrying with it emotions so raw and powerful that even Data paused, his positronic brain struggling to process the sensory data. Fear. Grief. Loneliness. And beneath it all, a desperate, clawing need for control. Jean Grey stood at the center of the inferno, her red hair whipping around her face in a wind that existed only for her. Her eyes blazed with that terrible green light, but tears streamed down her cheeks. I'm sorry, she gasped. I'm trying to, I can't. Deanna Troi stepped forward, directly into the path of the Phoenix fire. Jean, she said softly, her empathic abilities reaching out with every ounce of training she possessed. You're not trying to hurt us. I can feel it. You're afraid. Counselor, step back. Picard ordered, but Troi ignored him. You're afraid of yourself. Troi continued, moving closer. Afraid of what you might become. But right now, in this moment, you're in control. I can feel that too. Jean's eyes locked onto Troy's. For a heartbeat, something passed between them, a connection, mind to mind and path to telepath. Then the golden fire began to recede, pulling back into Jean's body like a living thing reluctantly returning to its cage. The woman collapsed to her knees on the biobed, her shoulders shaking with exhaustion. The burning light faded from her eyes, leaving them their natural green, still striking, but human. Mortal. How did you do that? Jean whispered, staring at Troi. You touched my mind. But you're not like Charles. Your telepathy is different. Softer. I'm an empath, Troi explained gently. I feel emotions rather than read thoughts. I'm Bedist, and our abilities are limited compared to what I sensed in you. Limited? Jean laughed bitterly. God, what I wouldn't give for limited right now. Picard approached cautiously, his diplomatic instincts overriding his very reasonable concern about the woman who had just torn through a level 5 containment field. Miss Grey, we have many questions, but first, are you in control now? For the moment. Jean looked down at her hands, which trembled slightly. The Phoenix Force is quieter here. Farther away. Like there's static between us. Your universe, it's different from mine. The fundamental forces don't quite align. That's the only reason I'm not. She stopped, closing her eyes. The only reason you're all still alive. The Phoenix Force. Data repeated, his head tilting with curiosity. You refer to your power as a separate entity? Because it is. Jean met his golden eyes without flinching. You're an android. Artificial intelligence. Do you believe in souls, Commander? Data. And that is a complex philosophical question. I possess a positronic brain capable of neuroprocessing that mimics human thought, but whether I have a soul remains a matter of. You do. Jean interrupted. I can feel it. It's beautiful. Unique. She looked around at each of them in turn. You all are. Your minds are so organized, so disciplined. In my world, most humans are chaos, thoughts and emotions bleeding everywhere, impossible to block out even with training. But you. She focused on Picard. Captain, your mind is like a fortress. Classical music playing in organized halls. Shakespeare on the shelves. You've trained yourself to think in structures. Picard felt a chill run down his spine. You're reading our thoughts. Not intentionally. You're telepaths. Jean glanced at Troy. They must be weak by my world standards, or you'd have better mental defenses. I'm trying not to listen, but it's like asking someone not to hear in a quiet room. Your thoughts are just there. Worf's hand moved to his phaser. Captain, this represents a significant security risk. Stand down, Lieutenant. Picard ordered, though he understood Worf's concern completely. A telepath this powerful, potentially unstable, aboard his ship, it violated every protocol regarding psionic threats. But something in Jean Grey's eyes, beneath the fear and the barely contained power, spoke of a person desperately trying to do the right thing. Miss Grey, he said carefully, you mentioned you've done something terrible. What happened in your universe? Jean's expression darkened. There was a mission. The X-Men, my team. We were trying to stop an event involving the Crown Crystal. It's a cosmic nexus point, a doorway to all realities. The Phoenix Force was drawn to it, and I. She swallowed hard. I lost control. The power spiked. The crystal shattered, and I felt myself being pulled in 1,000 directions at once. When I finally stopped, I was floating in your space, and the Phoenix was screaming inside my head because nothing felt right. The stars were in the wrong positions. The cosmic order was different. We were lost. We? Beverly Crusher asked quietly. Me and the Phoenix. We're bonded. It chose me as its host because I'm strong enough, barely, to contain it. The Phoenix Force is life incarnate. Creation and destruction. Birth and death and rebirth. It's burned galaxies to ash and seeded new life across the cosmos. And right now, it's inside me, confused and angry because this universe doesn't belong to it. The sickbay fell silent except for the quiet hum of medical equipment struggling to reboot after the power surge. Captain, Data said, I believe we should contact Starfleet Command immediately. This situation is beyond our... No. Jean stood, her movements fluid despite her obvious exhaustion. Please. I've spent my entire life being studied, feared, contained. Professor Xavier taught us that mutants and humans could coexist, but there was always suspicion. Always fear. And if what I'm sensing from your minds is accurate, your Federation has never encountered anything like me. That is precisely why we must inform Starfleet, Picard said firmly but not unkindly. And what will they do? Jean challenged. Quarantine me? Lock me away? Study me like a specimen? The golden light flickered at the edges of her irises. I've been down that road before, Captain. It never ends well. Captain Picard stood motionless, weighing centuries of Starfleet protocol against the pleading look in Jean Grey's eyes. He had made first contact with dozens of species, negotiated with Romulans and Klingon, survived assimilation attempts by the Borg. But this woman represented something different, not an alien threat, but a refugee with the power to reshape reality itself. Miss Gray, he began. The Federation was built on principles of diversity and acceptance. We have welcomed countless species into our alliance, including telepaths far more powerful than humans. But we also have protocols designed to protect our citizens from psionic threats. You must understand our position. I do understand. Jean's voice was steady now, the momentary flare of phoenix fire fading from her eyes. You're afraid of me. You should be. I'm afraid of me too. Deanna Troi stepped closer, her empathic senses still extended toward Jean. Captain, I don't sense deception. Her fear is genuine. So is her desire to do no harm. Counselor, your empathic abilities are considerable, but can they truly assess someone of Miss Gray's caliber? Picard asked. No, Troi admitted. But I trust what I'm feeling. She's telling the truth. Worf's combadge chirped. Bridge to Lieutenant Worf. We're detecting unusual energy fluctuations throughout the ship. Engineering reports power spikes in EPS conduits on decks 7 through 12. Jean's face went pale. That's me. The Phoenix energy, it's bleeding into your systems. I'm trying to contain it, but this ship runs on matter-antimatter reactions channeled through subspace. The Phoenix is feeding on that energy like. She pressed her hands to her temples. I need to get off this ship before I accidentally tear it apart from the inside. Belay that, Picard said sharply. You're not going anywhere until we understand what we're dealing with. He turned to Data. Commander, can we reinforce the ship's power systems against this interference? Data's fingers flew across a nearby medical console, accessing engineering systems. The energy signature Miss Gray generates operates on frequencies that overlap with our warp field harmonics. In theory, if we modulate the structural integrity field to create a dampening effect. Do it, Picard ordered. Miss Gray, I'm willing to extend trust, but you must work with us. No more secrets. No more surprises. Jean nodded slowly. I'll try. But Captain, you need to understand something about the Phoenix Force. It's not evil. It's not even sentient in the way you'd recognize. It's a fundamental force of the universe, my universe, like gravity or electromagnetism. It doesn't hate or love. It simply is. And right now, it's confused because the rules here are different. How different? Dr. Crusher asked, her medical curiosity overriding her caution. In my reality, the Phoenix draws power from the fundamental life force of the universe. Every living thing contributes to it. Here. Jean paused, her expression troubled. I can feel life everywhere. Your crew. The plants in your arboretum. Even your computer systems have something alive in them. But there's a distance. A barrier. Like I'm trying to breathe through thick glass. Fascinating, Data murmured. If your abilities are dependent on universal constants that differ between dimensions, it would explain why your power appears diminished. Diminished? Worf rumbled. She destroyed a level 5 containment field without effort. Yes, Data agreed. But based on her physiological readings and the residual energy signatures, I calculate she is operating at approximately 87% of her normal capacity. The dimensional variance is creating a natural dampening effect. Jean laughed, but there was no humor in it. 87%. And I'm still dangerous enough to make all of you nervous. You really don't want to see what 100% looks like. Actually, Miss Gray, I would very much like to understand your full capabilities, Picard said. Knowledge defeats fear. If you're willing, perhaps we could conduct some controlled tests. Red alert klaxons screamed throughout the ship. Bridge to Captain Picard. Commander Riker's voice came through with urgent tension. We have a situation. 3 Romulan warbids just decloaked off our port bow. They're hailing us. Picard's jaw tightened. The Romulans. Of course they would detect the dimensional rift. Their sensor networks along the neutral zone were specifically designed to monitor spatial anomalies. On my way, number 1. Maintain yellow alert posture. He turned to Jean. Miss Gray, I need you to remain here with Dr. Crusher. Do not leave this room. Do not use your abilities unless absolutely necessary. Captain, I can help. That is precisely what I'm afraid of, Picard said, not unkindly. The Romulans are dangerous, calculating, and paranoid. If they detect your power signature, they will want you either as a weapon or eliminated as a threat. Possibly both. Jean's green eyes flashed. I've dealt with governments trying to weaponize mutants before. It didn't end well for them. Then you understand why discretion is critical. Picard headed toward the door, then paused. Miss Gray, Jean. I give you my word that the Federation will not treat you as a weapon. But you must trust us to handle this diplomatically. On the bridge, Commander Riker stood rigid at the tactical station beside Worf, his eyes fixed on the view screen where 3 sleek Romulan warbirds hung in space like predatory birds. Their emerald hulls gleamed in the starlight, weapons ports visible and threatening. Status? Picard demanded, settling into his command chair. They're maintaining position at 15,000 kilometers. Worf reported. Shields are up. Weapons armed but not locked on. Standard aggressive posture. They're definitely interested in something, Riker added. Their sensor sweeps are focused on us, not the dissipating rift. Open a channel. The view screen shifted to display a Romulan commander, a woman with severe features and calculating eyes. Her uniform marked her as a high-ranking officer, possibly Tal Shiar intelligence. I am Commander Torith of the Romulan warbird Valdor, she said, her voice cold and precise. Captain Picard, your vessel detected and retrieved something from that dimensional anomaly. We monitored the entire event. The Romulan Star Empire has legitimate interest in any phenomenon that occurs near the neutral zone. Commander Torith, the Federation respects the treaty boundaries. The anomaly appeared in Federation space, and we responded according to our protocols. Protocols? Torith repeated with a thin smile. How diplomatic. Perhaps you'll be equally diplomatic when I inform you that our sensors detected a massive psionic discharge from your ship moments ago. A power signature unlike anything in our collective databases. You're harboring something extraordinary, Captain. Something dangerous. Picard's expression remained neutral. I don't know what your sensors detected, Commander, but don't insult my intelligence. Torith leaned forward. We both know what you found. And we both know that whatever it is represents a potential threat to the security of this entire sector. So I'll be direct. Surrender the individual you recovered, or we'll be forced to assume the Federation intends to weaponize them against the Empire. The bridge of the Enterprise fell silent. Every officer understood the weight of Commander Torith's demand. The Romulans didn't bluff, not about potential weapons, not about security threats. 3 warbirds meant they were prepared to enforce their ultimatum with disruptor fire if necessary. Picard stood, straightening his uniform with deliberate calm. Commander Torith, the Federation does not surrender refugees to foreign powers, particularly when those powers have provided no legal justification for such demands. The individual in question appeared through a natural phenomenon. She is under our protection. Protection. Torith's lips curved into something that wasn't quite a smile. Is that what you call it? Our intelligence suggests your refugee generates enough psionic energy to overwhelm a Constitution-class starship's shields. That's not a person, Captain. That's a weapon of mass destruction. She is a person, Picard said firmly. And she will be treated as such. How noble. How predictably Federation. Torith's eyes narrowed. But nobility won't protect you when that weapon destabilizes and tears a hole through subspace. We've analyzed the dimensional rift's decay pattern. Whatever came through didn't just breach the barrier between realities, it nearly shattered it. If that power is unleashed again in this universe, the consequences could be catastrophic. Data turned from his console. Captain, Commander Tortha's analysis is not entirely inaccurate. The rift's energy signature suggests a violent force transition rather than a controlled dimensional shift. If Miss Gray were to generate a similar energy discharge. I'm aware of the risks, Mr. Data. Picard kept his eyes fixed on Torth. Commander, I assure you that we are taking appropriate precautions. The individual poses no immediate threat to Federation or Romulan security. Your assurances are meaningless. Torth gestured, and the tactical display behind her shifted to show sensor logs. 37 minutes ago, your ship experienced a power surge across multiple decks. 18 minutes ago, another surge. The pattern is escalating. Whatever you're protecting is losing control. Worf's tactical console beeped urgently. Captain, the warbids are charging weapons. Commander Torth, this is not the path you want to take, Picard warned. Actually, Captain, it's the only logical path. Torth leaned back in her command chair. You have two options. Surrender the individual to Romulan custody for containment and study, or we will assume the Federation intends to deploy this weapon and respond accordingly. You have 5 minutes to decide. The transmission cut off. Red alert. Picard ordered. Shields to maximum. Evasive pattern Delta 5 on standby. Captain, Riker said quietly, they're not going to back down. 3 warbids against the Enterprise. We can't win that engagement. I'm aware, number 1. Picard tapped his comm badge. Picard to sickbay. Dr. Crusher's voice responded immediately, tight with tension. Captain, we felt the alert. What's happening? The Romulans detected Jean's power signature. They're demanding we surrender her. There was a pause, then Jean's voice came through, controlled but edged with steel. Let me talk to them. Absolutely not. Captain, I've spent years dealing with people who feared mutants. The Sentinels, government programs, hate groups. I know how this plays out. They see me as a weapon because that's all they can see. Let me show them I'm more than that. Miss Gray, the Romulans are not a hate group. They are a militaristic empire with centuries of strategic thinking and espionage experience. If you reveal the full extent of your abilities, they already know. Jean interrupted. Their sensors picked up the Phoenix energy. They know I'm powerful. What they don't know is whether I'm a person or a bomb. Let me show them the difference. Deanna Troy's voice joined the conversation. Captain, I think she's right. The Romulans respect strength, but they also respect control. If Jean can demonstrate both. Counselor, this is a dangerous gamble. So is fighting 3 warbids, Jean said simply. And if shooting starts, the Phoenix Force will respond to protect me. Your people will die. Their people will die. And I'll have to live with that. Please, Captain. Let me try. Picard closed his eyes briefly, weighing impossible choices. Finally, he opened them. Mr. Worf, escort Miss Gray to the bridge. Full security detail. If this goes badly. Understood, Captain? 3 minutes later, Jean Grey stepped onto the Enterprise bridge, flanked by Worf and 2 security officers. She had changed into clothes Dr. Crusher had replicated, dark pants and a simple tunic that somehow seemed both civilian and professional. Her red hair was pulled back, revealing the sharp intelligence in her green eyes. The bridge crew stared. They couldn't help it. Even without the golden aura, Jean radiated something, presence, power, danger, that made every instinct scream caution. Mr. Worf, open a channel to the Valdor, Picard ordered. Commander Tortha's face reappeared on the view screen. Her expression shifted slightly when she saw Jean standing beside Picard's command chair. A flicker of interest, calculation, and something that might have been fear. Commander Torth, Jean said before Picard could speak. I'm Jean Grey. I'm the person your sensors detected. And I'm going to save us all a lot of trouble by being direct. I am not a weapon. I am not a tool. I am a mutant telepath from another universe, bonded to a cosmic force I barely understand, trying very hard not to hurt anyone. Toritha's eyes narrowed. You speak of yourself as if you have a choice in the matter. Power like yours doesn't coexist peacefully with civilization. You're wrong. Jean took a step forward, her voice gaining strength. I've been fighting for coexistence my entire life. I've been feared, hunted, weaponized, and nearly destroyed by my own power more times than I can count. And I'm still here. Still choosing to be more than what people like you assume I am. People like me? Toritha's tone turned icy. People who see power and immediately think threat or asset. Never person. Jean's eyes blazed. Not with phoenix fire, but with conviction. I can feel your thoughts, Commander. Not the words, but the emotions. You're terrified of me. You're already planning how to kill me if I become a problem. But underneath that, you're also curious. You're wondering what it would be like to possess this kind of power. Toritha's face remained impassive, but Jean had struck a nerve. I'll make you a deal. Jean continued. I'll prove I'm in control. Right now. I'll demonstrate my abilities in a way that shows you I'm not a threat to the Romulan Empire or anyone else. And if I can't, if the Phoenix Force goes dark and I lose control, then your warbuds can do what you think is necessary. Jean, no. Picard started. Captain, with respect, this needs to happen. Jean turned to face him. They won't believe words. They need to see what I am. All of me. Including the Phoenix. The bridge held its breath. Even Data, who did not technically breathe, paused in his calculations to observe what would happen next. What exactly are you proposing? Torith asked, her voice carefully neutral. Jean turned back to the view screen. Your sensors can detect psionic energy, correct? Then watch. I'm going to open myself to the Phoenix Force, just enough to show you what it is. What I am. And I'm going to maintain control the entire time. That's insane, Riker muttered. Probably, Jean agreed. But it's better than the alternative. Picard stepped beside her. Miss Gray, if you lose control, this ship and everyone on it will be fine, Jean said softly. Because I won't lose control. Captain, you asked me to trust you. Now I'm asking the same. Trust that I know my limits. Trust that Professor Xavier didn't train me for nothing. Something in her eyes, a quiet confidence beneath the fear, made Picard step back. Very well. But at the first sign of instability, I will have this ship at maximum warp. Fair enough. Jean moved to the center of the bridge, away from the consoles and crew. She closed her eyes, her hands relaxing at her sides. Commander Torith, I suggest your science officers pay close attention. Deanna Troi felt it first, a building pressure against her empathic senses, like standing at the base of a dam about to open. Captain. The golden light began as a shimmer around Jean's body, barely visible against the bridge lighting. Then it grew, expanding outward in controlled waves that pulsed in time with her heartbeat. The light didn't burn or damage, it simply existed, beautiful and terrifying in equal measure. Jean's hair began to lift, floating around her head. Her eyes opened, blazing with that incandescent green fire, but her expression remained calm. Focused. The Phoenix Force, she said, and her voice carried harmonics that shouldn't have been possible for a human throat, is life incarnate. It is the passion of creation. The heat of birth. The fire of existence. Data's console lit up with readings. Captain, I am detecting energy levels that exceed. He paused, recalculating. That exceed all known biological limits. The power signature is equivalent to a star's core output, but somehow contained within her cellular structure. On the view screen, Commander Torith leaned forward, her calculated composure cracking slightly. Behind her, Romulan officers shouted readings in their native tongue. Jean lifted her hand, and the golden light coalesced around her palm, forming into a shape, a bird, wings spread, composed entirely of phoenix fire. The raptor circled the bridge once, its passage leaving trails of harmless light that faded like afterimages. This is the Phoenix, Jean continued, her voice still carrying that otherworldly resonance. In my universe, it has burned galaxies and seeded life across the cosmos. It is neither good nor evil. It simply is. The Firebird dissolved, and Jean raised both hands. The golden energy extended from her fingertips in precise, controlled streams that wove through the air like threads of living light. She shaped them into complex patterns, mathematical equations written in fire, DNA helices, the spiral of a galaxy. But here, in your universe, it's different. Weaker. The dimensional barrier between realities dampens its power. Which means, the patterns collapse back into her body. I have more control than I've had in years. Maybe more than I've ever had. Worf's tactical console beeped. Captain, the Warbids are backing down. They're powering weapons to stand by. Jean lowered her hands slowly, and the golden aura began to recede. The harmonics in her voice faded. The fire in her eyes dimmed to their natural green. Within moments she stood before them as she had been, a woman, tired and mortal, with power sleeping beneath her skin. She swayed slightly, and Picard moved quickly to steady her. Are you? I'm fine, Jean said, though her voice shook with exhaustion. Just, that took more out of me than I expected. Your universe really does resist the Phoenix. It's like running uphill. Commander Tortha's voice cut through the moment. Impressive, Miss Gray. You've demonstrated remarkable control. But control can be lost. Circumstances can change. They can, Jean agreed, straightening despite her fatigue. I've lost control before. I've hurt people I love. I've destroyed things I can never bring back. That's why I spent years learning meditation, discipline, mental shields. That's why I work with a team who can stop me if necessary. That's why I'm asking you, both of you. She looked between Torth and Picard. To see me as someone trying to be better than her worst impulses. Torth was silent for a long moment. When she spoke, her tone had shifted from hostile to calculating. The Romulan Empire has no interest in harboring a dimensional refugee. However, we also have no interest in allowing the Federation to possess a strategic asset of your magnitude without proper oversight. I'm not a strategic asset, Jean said tiredly. Semantics. Torth waved a hand dismissively. Captain Picard, the Star Empire will tolerate Miss Gray's presence in Federation space under the following conditions. She remains under constant monitoring. Any loss of control will be considered an act of aggression. And she will never, under any circumstances, approach Romulan territory. Commander, Picard began. These terms are non-negotiable. Torth continued. The alternative is that we report this incident to the High Command and demand a full inquiry under the Treaty of Algeron. I suspect your Starfleet Command would find that inconvenient. Picard's jaw tightened. The Romulans had them in a political stranglehold. A formal inquiry would drag Jean through Federation bureaucracy. Section 31 would inevitably get involved, and the entire situation would spiral into exactly the kind of weaponization Jean feared. I accept your terms, Jean said before Picard could respond. I'll stay away from your space. I'll accept monitoring. Whatever it takes to avoid a war over me. Tortha's expression softened imperceptibly. You are wiser than most humans, Miss Gray. Perhaps there is hope for you after all. She paused. One more thing. The Tal Shiar will be watching you. Not just through sensors. We have our methods. If you truly wish to coexist peacefully, remember that trust is earned slowly and destroyed instantly. Commander Torth, Jean said quietly, in my universe, I've worked with people who hated and feared mutants. Some of them eventually became allies. Some never did. But I learned that you can't force trust. You can only prove, day by day, that you're worth trusting. I'm prepared to do that work. Something flickered across Tortha's face, respect, perhaps, or the acknowledgement of a shared understanding between two women who had learned to navigate dangerous political waters. See that you do. Valdor out. The view screen returned to the image of the three warbids, which now began to move away, their impulse engines glowing as they withdrew to a monitoring distance. The bridge of the Enterprise transformed into a cathedral of golden fire. Phoenix energy cascaded across every surface, passing through consoles and crew alike. But this time, the fire wasn't warm. It was scorching, primal, furious at being challenged by the Sisterhood's crimson assault. Jean Grey floated 3 feet above the deck, her body rigid, arms spread wide. Her eyes were no longer human green but pure incandescent white. When she spoke, it was with that terrible harmonic voice that resonated in bone and soul. They dare command the Phoenix. Jean! Deanna Troi shouted over the roar of cosmic energy. You have to fight it! Don't let the Phoenix take control! She cannot hear you, Counselor, Data observed, his sensors struggling to process the impossible readings flooding his console. Miss Grey's neural patterns have been subsumed by the Phoenix Force consciousness. She is no longer the dominant personality. Picard stepped forward despite every instinct screaming to retreat. He had faced the Borg Queen, stared down Romulan commanders, negotiated with Q himself. He would not back down from a woman fighting for her own soul. Jean Grey, he said, his voice carrying the authority of decades of command. I know you can hear me. You demonstrated control minutes ago. You proved to the Romulans that you were more than this power. Don't let them be right about you. The Phoenix-possessed Jean turned her blazing gaze on him. For a heartbeat, Picard thought he had made a fatal miscalculation. Then something flickered in those white eyes, a spark of green, a fragment of the woman fighting her way back to the surface. Captain. Jean's voice broke through the harmonics, strained and desperate. The Sisterhood, they're using a resonance technique. Trying to force the Phoenix to reject me. I can't hold it much longer. On the view screen, the Sisterhood vessels had formed a circle around the Enterprise, their crimson energy building to critical levels. The telepathic voice thundered through every mind on the ship. Release the Phoenix, child. You were never meant to contain such glory. Let it burn away your weakness. Let it become what it was always destined to be, pure, unfettered, divine. Geordi, tell me you have that subspace disruption field, Picard said urgently into his comm badge. Working on it, Captain. But I'm seeing energy readings I can't even classify. If I get the frequency wrong, I might make things worse. The Enterprise shuddered as another coordinated blast from the Sisterhood ships struck the shields. Worf's tactical display showed what everyone already knew: they couldn't survive many more hits. Shields at 42%, the Klingon reported. The Romulan vessels are attempting to draw fire, but the Sisterhood is ignoring them. They want Miss Grey. Riker moved to stand beside Picard. Captain, if we can't disrupt their assault, we need to consider evacuation protocols. Negative, number 1. We don't abandon our people. Picard's eyes remained fixed on Jean, who hovered in midair, her body racked with the internal war between woman and cosmic force. Miss Grey spoke of her Professor Xavier. She mentioned mental shields and discipline. If her telepathy functions in our universe. Captain, are you suggesting a mind meld? Deanna Troi asked, shocked. Not exactly. But Counselor, your empathic abilities create a connection. You've already established rapport with her. If you could reach her mind, help her reinforce those shields she spoke of. That's insane. Riker protested. Deanna could be consumed by that much psionic energy. It's also our only option, Troi said quietly, her dark eyes steady despite the fear radiating from her. Captain, I'll need someone to anchor me. Someone with a strong, disciplined mind who can pull me back if I go too deep. Data stepped forward. I volunteer. My positronic matrix is not susceptible to psionic influence. I can monitor Counselor Troy's neural patterns and physically remove her from proximity if necessary. Do it, Picard ordered. Troi approached Jean slowly, her empathic senses extended like a lifeline into the maelstrom of fire and fury. She could feel the Phoenix Force, vast, ancient, neither good nor evil but simply power incarnate. And beneath it, Drowning in an ocean of cosmic consciousness, she felt Jean Grey fighting with everything she had to remain herself. "Jean," Troy said softly, placing her hands on either side of Jean's face, ignoring the way the phoenix fire scorched her palms. "I'm here. Follow my voice. Follow my emotions back to yourself." The connection slammed into Troy like a physical blow. Suddenly she was inside Jean's mind, a vast landscape of memories and thoughts organized with military precision. But the Phoenix Force raged through it like a wildfire, burning through carefully constructed mental barriers, threatening to consume everything that made Jean Grey human. "You cannot contain me forever," the Phoenix whispered, and Troy realized with horror that it was speaking to Jean, had been speaking to her for years. "Why do you fight? Why do you cling to mortality when I offer you the cosmos?" "Because mortality is what gives life meaning." Jean's voice echoed through the mindscape. She appeared before Troy, not the Phoenix-possessed figure, but the woman herself, dressed in the black and gold uniform of the X-Men. "Because I've seen what happens when power is unleashed without conscience. I've been Dark Phoenix. I've killed. I won't become that again." "The Sisterhood will force your hand," the Phoenix warned. "They know the rituals. They know how to separate us. And if we are torn apart violently, the resulting explosion will destroy everything within light years." Troy felt the truth of those words. "Jean, you need to do the opposite of what they expect. Don't fight the Phoenix. Don't try to contain it. Merge with it completely, but on your terms. Become one consciousness, woman and cosmic force together." "I can't," Jean said, and for the first time, Troy heard genuine fear in her voice. "If I let the Phoenix fully in, I might never come back. Then I'll be your anchor," Troy said firmly. "I'll hold on to Jean Grey, the woman who loves her friends, who fights for coexistence, who chose to trust Captain Picard even when she had every reason to run. That's who you are. The Phoenix is what you carry, but it's not who you are." In the physical world, Data monitored Counselor Troy's vital signs with growing concern. "Captain, her neural activity is approaching dangerous levels. How long can she sustain this?" "Unknown. Human minds were not designed for this kind of psionic integration." On the view screen, the Sisterhood vessels pulsed with crimson energy, preparing for their final assault. Commander Tortha's voice crackled through the chaos. "Captain Picard, whatever you're doing, do it faster. My ships cannot withstand another coordinated attack. We're withdrawing to defensive range." The Romulan warbirds peeled away, their shields flickering with damage. The Enterprise stood alone against the Sisterhood's circle of fire. Inside Jean's mind, Troy felt the moment of decision approaching, the point where Jean Grey would either master the Phoenix Force completely or be consumed by it. She held tight to the woman's consciousness, an empathic anchor in a sea of cosmic fire. "You are Jean Grey," Troy said, her voice resonating through the mindscape. "Telepath. X-Man, friend. Human. The Phoenix chose you because you are strong enough not just to contain it, but to guide it. So guide it now. Show these zealots what true unity looks like." Jean's green eyes blazed with determination. She reached out, not to push the Phoenix away, but to embrace it. The golden fire on the Enterprise bridge changed. It no longer raged chaotically but moved with purpose, flowing back into Jean's body in controlled streams. Her feet touched the deck. Her eyes shifted from white to green, but now the green held golden starbursts within. When she spoke, her voice was her own, but carrying a harmonic undertone of something vast and ancient. "I am Jean Grey. I am the Phoenix. And we are done being hunted." The transformation was complete. Jean Grey stood at the center of the Enterprise bridge, no longer fighting the Phoenix Force but wielding it with surgical precision. The golden aura around her body pulsed with controlled rhythm, each wave synchronized with her heartbeat. Her eyes held that impossible green-gold color, human and cosmic simultaneously. Deanna Troi collapsed into Data's arms, her empathic senses overwhelmed but intact. "She did it," the counselor whispered. "She's truly in control now. Jean turned to face the view screen where the Sisterhood vessels maintained their circle, their crimson energy building toward critical mass. When she spoke, her voice carried across subspace without need for conventional communication, a telepathic broadcast that reached every mind in the sector. "Sisters of the Crimson Dawn," Jean said, her tone eerily calm. "You've chased me across dimensional barriers. You've endangered innocent lives. You claim to worship the Phoenix, but you understand nothing of what it truly is." The response came as a collective voice, dozens of minds speaking as one, unified by fanatical conviction. "We understand purification. We understand rebirth. You hoard the Phoenix's gift for your own selfish purposes. We will liberate it and burn away the imperfections of this universe. That's where you're wrong." Jean raised her hand, and golden energy coalesced around her palm. Not the wild, uncontrolled fire from before, but shaped, focused, deliberate. The Phoenix isn't about destruction. It's about balance. Life and death. Creation and entropy. You've twisted its purpose into a death cult. Captain Picard watched with fascination and growing hope. This was the Jean Grey who had demonstrated control for the Romulans, but evolved, integrated, whole. She was no longer containing the Phoenix or being consumed by it. She had become something unprecedented. A true symbiosis between mortal and cosmic force. "Mr. Worf," Picard said quietly. "Weapon status." "Photon torpedoes armed and ready, Captain. But I do not believe conventional weapons will be effective against." "I'm not asking you to fire, Lieutenant. I'm ensuring we have options if Miss Gray's negotiation fails." It wouldn't be negotiation that resolved this. Jean knew that with crystalline clarity. The Sisterhood had crossed dimensional barriers driven by religious fervor. They wouldn't stop until they possessed the Phoenix Force or died trying. Which meant she had to show them the futility of their quest in terms they couldn't ignore. "You want to see the Phoenix's true power?" Jean asked, her voice resonating across subspace. "Then witness." She closed her eyes, and her consciousness expanded outward on wings of gold and fire. In an instant, she touched every mind in the sector. Every crew member on the Enterprise, every Romulan officer on the Warbids, every zealot in the Sisterhood fleet, even the embryonic artificial intelligence in Data's positronic brain. But she didn't invade or control. She simply shared. Picard gasped as images flooded his mind. He saw Jean Grey's life in rapid flashes, a young girl discovering her telepathy, terrified of the voices she couldn't shut out. Professor Charles Xavier teaching her to build mental shields. The X-Men becoming her family. The shuttle mission where cosmic radiation awakened the Phoenix Force within her. The terrible glory of Dark Phoenix, when she lost control and consumed a star, killing 5 billion alien souls in the Bari system. He felt her guilt. Her shame. Her determination to be better than her worst moment. Throughout the bridge, officers staggered under the weight of Jean's memories. Deanna Troi wept openly, overwhelmed by the depth of Jean's emotional journey. Even Worf, who prided himself on Klingon stoicism, gripped his console with white knuckles as he experienced what it meant to carry power that could destroy galaxies. "This is what you seek," Jean's voice echoed in every mind. "Not glory. Not divinity. Responsibility. Guilt. The constant fear that one moment of weakness will murder billions. This is what the Phoenix Force demands of its hosts, not worship, but conscience." On the Sisterhood vessels, chaos erupted. The Zealots had expected triumph, ascension, divine purpose. Instead, they felt the crushing weight of Jean Grey's humanity, her doubts, her failures, her desperate struggle to remain herself in the face of infinite power. Some of the Sisterhood ships broke formation, their crimson energy flickering as the collective will fractured. Jean pressed her advantage, her telepathic voice now carrying the Phoenix Force's own cosmic perspective. "The Phoenix chose me not because I'm strong enough to wield it, but because I'm weak enough to fear it. Because I understand that power without restraint is destruction without meaning. You sought a god. But gods without compassion are just tyrants with better weapons. The lead sisterhood vessel surged forward, its crimson energy blazing brighter. One mind refused to break, the High Priestess, the architect of this interdimensional pursuit. Heresy! The priestess's voice screamed across subspace. You diminish the Phoenix with your mortal weakness. We will tear it from you and show this universe what true divinity looks like. The vessel opened fire with everything it had. Crimson energy lanced toward the Enterprise with enough force to vaporize the ship. Jean moved faster than thought. She stepped through space itself, not teleportation, but a folding of reality that placed her between the Enterprise and the blast. The crimson energy struck her directly, and for a heartbeat, the bridge crew thought she had been vaporized. Then the golden fire exploded outward. Jean Grey stood in the vacuum of space, surrounded by the Phoenix force made manifest. The cosmic firebird spread its wings behind her, not the chaotic, destructive force that had nearly consumed her, but a conscious, purposeful entity working in perfect harmony with its host. She caught the crimson energy in her hands and simply stopped it. The blast dispersed harmlessly against the Phoenix's power, scattering into subspace like ash on the wind. You want the Phoenix? Jean's voice carried absolute finality. Then you'll have to go through me. And I promise you, I've fought gods, monsters, and my own dark side. I've died and been reborn. I've walked through fire that would reduce you to atoms. If you truly believe you're worthy of this power, prove it. The High Priestess's vessel charged, crimson energy forming into weapons that shouldn't exist, psionic constructs shaped like blades, spears, and chains. The Sisterhood's remaining ships joined the assault, their combined power enough to crack a planet's crust. Jean met them head-on. The space between the Enterprise and the dimensional rift became a battleground of cosmic forces. Golden Phoenix fire clashed against crimson zealotry, each impact sending shockwaves through subspace that rattled ships light years away. Jean moved like a dancer, her body enhanced by the Phoenix force to survive in hard vacuum, to dodge attacks that traveled at relativistic speeds, to counter with precision strikes that disabled rather than destroyed. Captain, Data observed, his sensors tracking the impossible combat. Miss Grey is deliberately limiting her counterattacks. She could end this engagement with a single full-power strike, but she's holding back. She doesn't want to kill them, Troy said softly. Even now, even after everything they've done, she's trying to prove that power doesn't have to mean destruction. Picard understood. This was Jean Grey's defining moment. Proof that she had truly integrated the Phoenix Force, that she could wield godlike power while maintaining human values. Every strike she held back, every mercy she showed, was a repudiation of everything the Sisterhood believed. The High Priestess seemed to realize this as well. Her vessel's attacks became more desperate, more frenzied, until finally she made a fatal tactical error. She channeled all her remaining power into a single massive strike, leaving her ship's defenses completely exposed. Jean could have destroyed her. Should have, by any tactical calculation. Instead, she reached out with the Phoenix Force and did something unexpected. She healed. The crimson energy poisoning the priestess's mind, decades of fanatical indoctrination twisted into religious fervor, was burned away by golden fire. Not destroyed, but purified in the Phoenix's truest sense. Returned to what it had been before zealotry corrupted it. The priestess's scream echoed across subspace, not of pain, but of sudden, terrible clarity. The High Priestess's vessel went dark. Not destroyed, but silent, its crimson energy extinguished like a candle flame. The remaining Sisterhood ships wavered in their formation, confusion rippling through their collective consciousness as their leader's fanatical conviction was stripped away by the Phoenix's purifying fire. Jean Grey floated in the vacuum, the cosmic firebird still manifested behind her, wings spread in a display that was both beautiful and terrifying. She hadn't killed. She hadn't destroyed. She had done something far more profound. She had forced the priestess to confront reality without the comforting delusions of zealotry. On the Enterprise bridge, Captain Picard watched with something approaching awe. "Counselor, what just happened?" Deanna Troy's empathic senses strained to process the psychic aftermath. The priestess, Jean, removed the conditioning. Decades of indoctrination, burned away in an instant. She's experiencing everything the sisterhood made her suppress. Doubt. Fear. Guilt. Her own humanity. Is she alive? Yes. But the person she was is gone. Jean gave her back the ability to choose who she wants to be. The remaining sisterhood vessels broke formation completely. Without their leader's unifying conviction, the collective consciousness fractured. Some ships began retreating toward the dimensional rift. Others simply drifted, their crews presumably grappling with the same existential crisis their priestess now faced. Jean's voice resonated across subspace one final time, but now it carried gentleness instead of power. Go home. Return to whatever universe you came from. And when you get there, ask yourselves what you truly believe. Not what you were taught to believe. Not what your leaders demanded. What you, as individuals, choose to value. The dimensional rift pulsed, its crimson edges fading to softer purple as the sisterhood ships limped toward it. One by one, they vanished back through the tear in reality. The High Priestess's vessel was the last to go, pulled through by automated systems while its commander presumably sat in silence, confronting the ruins of her worldview. The rift collapsed with a sound that wasn't quite sound, a sensation of reality sealing itself, of dimensional barriers reforming. Within moments, only the normal starfield remained, peaceful and infinite. Jean Grey turned back toward the Enterprise. The golden firebird behind her dissolved into streams of light that flowed back into her body. She raised a hand, and the Phoenix Force created a gentle cushion of energy that carried her back to the ship. Not through the transporter, but through a direct manipulation of space that placed her exactly where she had been standing on the bridge moments before. Her feet touched the deck. The golden aura faded completely. Her eyes returned to their natural green, though a hint of that cosmic fire still lingered in their depths. She swayed, exhausted, and both Picard and Riker moved to steady her. "I'm okay," Jean said, though her voice shook with fatigue. That took everything I had. You defeated an interdimensional zealot army without killing a single person," Picard said quietly. "That is extraordinary, Miss Grey." "I didn't defeat them, Captain. I just gave them back their free will." Jean looked up at the view screen, at the empty space where the rift had been. The priestess will have to live with the memories of everything she did in the name of the Phoenix. That's a harsher punishment than death. Before anyone could respond, Commander Tortha's face reappeared on the screen. The Romulan commander's expression was carefully neutral, but Picard detected a flicker of respect in her eyes. "Captain Picard. Miss Grey. The Romulan Star Empire acknowledges that you have resolved the immediate threat without causing unacceptable collateral damage. However, the demonstration of power we just witnessed only reinforces our position. Miss Grey represents a clear and present danger to regional stability." "Commander," Picard began. "I'm not finished." Tortha's gaze fixed on Jean. "But I must also acknowledge that you showed remarkable restraint. A lesser being would have simply destroyed the Sisterhood fleet. You chose mercy. That is noteworthy." Jean met Tortha's gaze without flinching. "I've been on the receiving end of fear and hatred my entire life, Commander. I won't become the monster people expect me to be." "Perhaps." Tortha's expression softened almost imperceptibly. "The Tal Shiar will continue monitoring you, as previously stated. But I will personally recommend to the High Command that you be classified as a potential ally rather than an immediate threat. Do not make me regret this recommendation, Miss Grey. I'll do my best." "See that you do." Valdor out. The Romulan warbids engaged their cloaking devices and vanished from sensors, though Picard knew they remained nearby, watching. Always watching. The bridge crew began the process of standing down from red alert. Worf reported shield and weapon status. Data analyzed the dimensional rift's collapse pattern. Geordie LaForge called from engineering to report minor damage to the EPS conduits, but nothing that couldn't be repaired. Slowly, the Enterprise returned to something resembling normal operations. But everyone's eyes kept drifting back to Jean Grey, who stood at the center of the bridge looking small and human and impossibly powerful all at once. "Captain," she said quietly, "I need to be honest with you. What you saw out there, that was me at maybe 90% integration with the Phoenix. I held back because I was afraid of what full power might do in this universe. But the Sisterhood was right about one thing: I can't stay here indefinitely. The Phoenix Force doesn't belong in your reality. It's destabilizing dimensional barriers just by existing here." Picard's expression grew grave. "How long do we have?" "Days. Maybe a week." Jean's voice carried quiet resignation. "Eventually, I'll need to find a way home. Or find somewhere else where the Phoenix can exist without tearing holes in reality. Then we have time to explore options," Picard said firmly. "Starfleet has extensive research on dimensional phenomena. Perhaps we can find a solution that doesn't require you to leave or remain isolated. Captain, with respect, we both know what Starfleet will want." Jean's smile was sad and knowing. "They'll want to study me. Understand the Phoenix Force. See if it can be replicated or controlled. I've seen it before. Good people with good intentions trying to weaponize what they don't understand. Not everyone in Starfleet thinks that way," Troy interjected gently. "Captain Picard has consistently advocated for the rights of unique individuals. Data fought for his own sentience. The Federation isn't perfect, but it tries to do better." Jean looked at the android with genuine curiosity. "You fought for your sentience? What happened?" Data's head tilted slightly. "A Starfleet cyberneticist attempted to disassemble me for research purposes. Captain Picard defended my right to self-determination in a legal proceeding. The ruling established that I am a sentient being with rights, not property to be experimented upon. So there's precedent," Jean said thoughtfully. "But Data, you're one person. The Phoenix Force is power that could reshape galaxies. The temptation to use that power, to study it, to harness it, that's a lot stronger than the temptation to disassemble an android. No offense. None taken. Your assessment is logical." Picard's comm badge chirped. "Bridge, this is Transporter Room 3. Sir, we're picking up an energy signature forming inside the ship. It's not Miss Gray's Phoenix signature. It's something else. Something." A flash of white light exploded on the bridge. When it faded, a figure stood before them, humanoid, male, dressed in an immaculate Starfleet captain's uniform from an era that hadn't existed yet. His face was ageless, his eyes contained infinite amusement and infinite boredom simultaneously. "Q. Well, well, well," the omnipotent being said, spreading his arms theatrically. "What an absolutely delicious complication we have here. A cosmic entity from another dimension, trapped in our reality, trying so very hard to be heroic." He turned his gaze on Jean, and for once, his expression held genuine interest rather than mockery. "Tell me, Miss Gray, have you ever wondered what happens when two infinite powers meet?" The bridge fell into stunned silence. Even Jean Grey, who had faced Apocalypse, Magneto, and the Shi'ar Empire, found herself momentarily speechless at the casual arrogance radiating from the being who had simply appeared in their midst. Captain Picard, however, was not surprised. He closed his eyes briefly, gathering his patience before addressing their uninvited guest. "Q, I should have known you would involve yourself in this situation. Oh, mon capitaine, you wound me!" Q placed a hand over his heart in mock offense. "I'm not involving myself. I'm observing. There's a difference. Though I must admit, when the continuum detected a cosmic anomaly powerful enough to register across dimensional barriers, even we were intrigued." Jean's eyes narrowed, the Phoenix Force instinctively responding to Q's presence. Golden light flickered at the edges of her consciousness. "You're Q. I felt you in Captain Picard's memories when I touched his mind earlier." omnipotent, capricious, testing humanity like their laboratory specimens. Guilty on all counts, Q said cheerfully. He circled Jean like a predator assessing prey, though his expression suggested genuine fascination rather than hostility. But you, my dear, are far more interesting than these limited little humans. You carry a force that exists outside our reality's normal parameters. The Phoenix. Life incarnate. Death and rebirth made manifest. He paused, tilting his head. Tell me, does it hurt? Being a mortal container for infinite cosmic power? Every day, Jean said quietly. But pain is how I know I'm still human. How delightfully tragic. Q snapped his fingers, and suddenly they were no longer on the Enterprise bridge. The crew, the ship, everything vanished, replaced by an infinite white void that stretched in all directions. Jean and Q stood alone, facing each other across impossible emptiness. What did you do? Jean demanded, the Phoenix force surging to the surface. Golden fire erupted around her body, wings manifesting in response to the perceived threat. Where's the Enterprise? Where's the crew? Relax, Firebird. They're perfectly safe. I've simply removed us from that tedious linear time stream for a conversation. Q waved a hand dismissively. We can return to the exact moment we left. Or a century later. Or before the Enterprise was even built. Time is rather flexible when you're omnipotent. I've met cosmic beings before, Jean said, not lowering her guard. The Watcher. Eternity. Even Galactus. They all had their agendas. What's yours? Direct. I like that. Q materialized a chair out of nothing and sat down, crossing his legs casually. My agenda, Miss Gray, is simple. I want to understand what you are. The continuum has existed for eons. We've seen stars born and die. We've witnessed the birth of universes and the heat-death of realities. But we've never encountered the Phoenix Force. It doesn't exist in our dimension. And yet, here you are, a fragment of impossible power wearing a human face. The Phoenix isn't impossible. It's just from somewhere else. Exactly. Q leaned forward, his eyes alight with genuine excitement. Somewhere else. Another reality with different fundamental forces. Different physical laws. The Phoenix operates on principles that shouldn't work here, and yet. He gestured at Jean's manifested wings of fire. There you are, breaking every rule, defying entropy itself. It's magnificent. It's terrifying. It's the most interesting thing to happen in this galaxy in millennia. Jean felt the Phoenix Force's awareness focusing on Q, analyzing him with cosmic perception that saw beyond three-dimensional space. What she saw made her breath catch. You're afraid, she said, surprised. The continuum is afraid of the Phoenix. Q's smile didn't waver, but something shifted in his eyes, an acknowledgement of truth. Afraid is such a limited word. Concerned, perhaps. The Phoenix Force represents change. Evolution. Death and rebirth. The continuum is eternal, unchanging, perfect in our stasis. Your power threatens that perfection. So you came here to eliminate me? Quite the opposite. Q stood, his casual demeanor falling away to reveal something ancient and vast behind the humanoid facade. I came to offer you a choice, Jean Grey. The Phoenix Force cannot remain in our universe indefinitely. You already know this. The dimensional barriers are weakening with every moment you exist here. Eventually, they'll collapse completely, and when they do, two realities will bleed into each other. Chaos. Destruction. Billions dead across multiple dimensions. Jean's heart sank. She had suspected as much, but hearing it confirmed by an omnipotent being made it devastatingly real. So I have to leave. You have to leave. Q agreed. But where you go, that's the interesting question. He snapped his fingers, and suddenly the white void filled with images. Countless realities, infinite possibilities, stretching out like branches on a cosmic tree. I can send you home. Back to your X-Men, your Professor Xavier, your little blue planet with its charming self-destructive tendencies. The Phoenix Force would stabilize, the dimensional barriers would heal, and everything would return to normal. There's a but coming, Jean said warily. There's always a but. Q's smile turned enigmatic. But if I send you home, you'll have learned nothing. You came to this universe by accident, but perhaps, just perhaps, it was meant to teach you something. You merged with the Phoenix Force completely for the first time in this reality. You demonstrated control you never had before. You showed mercy to zealots who would have killed you. You proved that infinite power doesn't require infinite destruction. Jean saw where this was leading. You want me to stay. I want you to choose. Q corrected. Because that's what separates you from the Phoenix Force, isn't it? Choice. Free will. The ability to decide who you want to be rather than simply being what your power dictates. He gestured at the branching realities. I can stabilize your presence here. The continuum has that ability. We can anchor the Phoenix Force to this dimension, prevent the dimensional collapse, let you exist here without tearing holes in space-time. Why would you do that? Because, Miss Gray, you're a test. Q's expression grew serious. Not for you, for us. The continuum has grown complacent. We've forgotten what it means to evolve, to change, to risk. You represent everything we've abandoned in our pursuit of omnipotent perfection. If we can coexist with a force as chaotic and vital as the Phoenix, perhaps we haven't become as stagnant as I fear. Jean absorbed this, her mind racing through implications. And if I choose to stay? What then? Then you become part of this reality. A cosmic anomaly. A bridge between dimensions. The Federation will study you, fear you, eventually accept you, or try to. The Romulans will watch you constantly. The Borg will inevitably attempt assimilation. Q shrugged. It won't be easy. But you'll have the opportunity to prove that power and compassion can coexist. That gods can have conscience. And if I go home? Then you return to a universe that understands the Phoenix Force. Where your power fits the natural order. Where you have family, friends, purpose. Q's voice softened slightly. Where you belong. Jean looked at the infinite branching realities, each one representing a choice, a path, a future. In her home dimension, she was Jean Grey of the X-Men, powerful, feared, but understood within the context of mutants and superheroes. Here, in the Star Trek universe, she was unprecedented. Unique. A cosmic impossibility that had somehow learned to master itself. Captain Picard told me the Federation values diversity, Jean said slowly. That they welcome the unknown. Do you believe that's true? I believe they try, Q admitted. Humans are limited, short-sighted, and absurdly mortal. But they possess one quality the continuum lost eons ago, hope. They genuinely believe they can be better tomorrow than they are today. It's simultaneously their greatest weakness and their most admirable trait. The Phoenix Force whispered in Jean's mind, offering its own perspective, a cosmic view beyond human concerns. It showed her the price of staying. Constant vigilance, endless political complications, the possibility of war between Federation and Empire over her existence. And it showed her the price of leaving, abandoning people who had shown her kindness, failing to prove that the Phoenix could be more than destruction. I need to talk to them, Jean said finally. The Enterprise crew. Captain Picard? They risked their lives defending me. They deserve to be part of this decision. Q smiled, a genuine smile, not his usual mocking smirk. How wonderfully human of you. Very well. He snapped his fingers. Reality snapped back like a rubber band released. Jean and Q stood once more on the Enterprise bridge, exactly where they had been. To the crew, no time had passed at all. Picard's hand was still moving toward his comm badge. Worf's fingers still reaching for his phaser, Data's head still turning to analyze Q's sudden appearance. But Jean and Q had experienced hours of conversation compressed into a single frozen moment. Security to the bridge! Picard finished his command, then stopped, realizing that Q had done something but uncertain what. No need for security, Jean-Luc, Q said casually. Miss Gray and I have had a delightful conversation about cosmic philosophy and dimensional mechanics. We've reached an understanding. An understanding? Picard's eyes narrowed with suspicion. What kind of understanding? Jean stepped forward, the Phoenix Force calm within her now, no longer fighting for dominance, but existing in harmony. Q has offered me a choice, Captain. He can send me home to my own universe, or he can anchor the Phoenix Force to your reality so I can stay here without causing dimensional collapse. The bridge fell silent as the implications registered. Deanna Troi was the first to speak, her empathic senses reading the complex emotions radiating from Jean. You want to stay, Troi said softly. But you're afraid of what that means. I'm always afraid, Jean admitted. Fear keeps me human. But yes, part of me wants to stay. In my universe, I'm one of many superpowered beings. Mutants, gods, cosmic entities. Power like mine isn't unique. Here I'm unprecedented. I could help the Federation understand psionic abilities in ways they never imagined. I could be proof that infinite power doesn't have to mean infinite destruction. Or you could become a focal point for conflict, Worf said bluntly. The Romulans, Klingon, Cardassians. Every major power will want to either recruit you or eliminate you. Your presence could destabilize the entire Alpha Quadrant. The Klingon makes a valid point, Q interjected. Though personally, I find the potential chaos rather entertaining. This isn't about entertainment, Picard said sharply. He turned to Jean, his expression serious but not unkind. Miss Gray, Jean, this is your decision. But you should understand what you're choosing. The Federation isn't perfect. We have bureaucrats who will want to study you. Military strategists who will see you as a weapon. Politicians who will fear what you represent. It won't be an easy life. Captain, I've never had an easy life, Jean said with a sad smile. I was 9 years old when my telepathy awakened and I accidentally felt my best friend die. I've spent every day since then learning to control powers that could kill everyone around me with a stray thought. The Phoenix Force found me because I was already broken in exactly the right way to contain it. She looked around the bridge at each crew member. But I've also never been alone. Professor Xavier gave me a family. The X-Men taught me that power comes with responsibility. And now you, people from another universe entirely, risked your lives to defend me from zealots you didn't understand. That means something. Data tilted his head, processing. Your decision appears to be influenced by emotional attachment rather than logical calculation. Guilty, Jean said. But Data, you fought for your right to be recognized as a person rather than property. That wasn't purely logical either. That was you insisting on your right to define yourself on your own terms. That's what I'm doing now. The android's golden eyes held something that might have been understanding. An apt comparison. I concede your point. Commander Riker stepped forward. Captain, if Jean stays, Starfleet Command will need to be informed. There will be protocols, regulations, possibly a formal inquiry. The political ramifications alone are considerable, Picard finished. But the Federation was built on the principle of welcoming diversity, even when that diversity challenges our assumptions. If we turn Jean away simply because she's too powerful, too different, we abandon the values we claim to uphold. How very noble, Q drawled. I'm almost moved. Almost. He turned to Jean. So what will it be, Firebird? Home to your X-Men and the comfortable chaos of your own dimension? Or stay here and become something new? A cosmic ambassador, a bridge between realities, a living reminder that power and conscience can coexist? Jean closed her eyes, letting the Phoenix Force flow through her consciousness. She felt its perspective, vast, timeless, caring nothing for human politics or personal attachments. To the Phoenix, this was simply another moment in an infinite existence. But to Jean Grey, it was everything. She thought of Scott Summers, her partner in her own universe. Of Aurora, Logan, Hank, Her family. They would wonder what happened to her. They would search. They would grieve. But she also thought of Captain Picard's unwavering defense of her rights. Of Deanna Troi reaching into her mind to serve as an anchor when the Phoenix threatened to consume her. Of Data's innocent curiosity about her nature. Of a universe that didn't yet understand psionic power but was willing to try. If I stay, Jean said slowly, opening her eyes. I need certain conditions. Q raised an eyebrow. Negotiating with an omnipotent being? Bold. You offered me a choice. That means negotiation is possible. Jean's voice grew stronger. First, I need a way to contact my home universe. To let my team know I'm alive and chose this. They deserve that much. Easily arranged, Q said. I can create a one-time dimensional communication channel. You can send a message, though you won't be able to receive a reply without destabilizing the barriers again. Second, I want protection from Section 31. Picard looked surprised that Jean knew about Starfleet's Black Ops division, but then remembered she was a telepath who had touched multiple minds on his ship. I cannot guarantee. Q can't, Jean interrupted, looking at the omnipotent being. You said you want to see if power and compassion can coexist. That experiment fails if Section 31 drugs me and locks me in a lab somewhere. I need assurance that won't happen. Q's smile was genuine. Consider it done. Any Section 31 operative who attempts to detain you will find themselves inconvenienced. Permanently. Define inconvenienced, Jean said warily. Let's just say they'll wake up in the 22nd century with a strong desire to become botanists. Nothing fatal. Merely educational. Third, Jean continued, I want to be useful. Not just monitored and contained. If I'm staying in this universe, I want to help. Exploration, first contact situations, diplomatic missions where a telepath might prevent misunderstandings, whatever the Federation needs. Picard considered this. That would require you to essentially join Starfleet, or at least work as a civilian consultant. You'd need clearances, oversight, accountability. I understand. I'm not asking for special treatment, Captain. I'm asking for purpose. And fourth? Q prompted, clearly enjoying this negotiation. Jean turned to face the view screen, looking out at the infinite stars. Fourth, I need to know that if I fail, if the Phoenix Force goes dark again, if I lose control and become the monster people fear, someone will stop me. Permanently. The bridge fell silent. Even Q's perpetual amusement faded slightly. Jean, that's not... Troi began. It's necessary, Jean said firmly. The Phoenix Force destroyed a star in my universe. 5 billion people died because I lost control for one moment. I won't let that happen here. So I need Captain Picard's word that if I become a threat, he'll do whatever's necessary to stop me. Even if that means killing me. Picard met her eyes, understanding the weight of what she was asking. You want me to be your fail-safe? I need you to be. Can you give me that promise? The captain of the Enterprise stood silent for a long moment, weighing duty against compassion, logic against hope. Finally, he spoke. Jean Grey, if you choose to remain in our universe, I give you my word, should you lose control and become a threat to innocent lives, I will stop you by any means necessary. You have my solemn promise. Jean smiled, and for the first time since arriving in this strange reality, she looked truly at peace. Then I'm staying. Q clapped his hands together delightedly. Excellent! The Continuum will be so wonderfully conflicted about this. Some will call it madness. Others will see it as evolution. I call it theater. He snapped his fingers, and golden energy swirled around Jean. Not Phoenix fire, but Q's own omnipotent power, weaving dimensional anchors that would prevent her presence from tearing reality apart. There. You're now a permanent resident of our humble dimension. Welcome to the neighborhood, Firebird. The energy faded. Jean felt the difference immediately. The Phoenix Force no longer strained against dimensional barriers. It settled into this new reality like a bird finding a perch after a long flight. Q vanished with his characteristic flash of light, leaving behind only a whispered promise that he'd be watching Jean's progress with great interest. The bridge crew slowly relaxed, though everyone understood that nothing would be quite the same again. Captain Picard approached Jean, extending his hand. "Welcome to the Federation, Miss Gray. I suspect you're about to make Starfleet Command very nervous." Jean shook his hand, managing a tired smile. "I've been making authority figures nervous since I was 9 years old, Captain. I'm used to it." Over the following days, the Enterprise set course for Starbase 234, where Jean would begin the complex process of integration into Federation society. Starfleet Command was indeed nervous, but Captain Picard's detailed reports, supported by testimony from Commander Torith, surprisingly, convinced them that Jean Grey represented an opportunity rather than purely a threat. Jean sent her message home through the dimensional channel Q provided. She told Professor Xavier and the X-Men that she was alive, safe, and had chosen to remain in another universe where she could finally control the Phoenix Force completely. She told Scott she would always love him but understood if he needed to move on. She told Logan to keep the team safe. She told them all not to look for her, that dimensional barriers were too fragile to risk another crossing. She didn't know if they received the message. Q assured her they had, but she would never hear their replies. It was a sacrifice she accepted, one more price of the power she carried. Deanna Troi worked with Jean to develop protocols for telepathic ethics in Federation space. Data studied the Phoenix Force's energy signature, fascinated by the way it bent physical laws without breaking them. Worf grudgingly admitted that anyone who could defeat a zealot army without killing deserved respect, even if she remained a potential security risk. Dr. Crusher documented Jean's unique physiology, creating medical files that would revolutionize Starfleet's understanding of psionic abilities. And Captain Picard kept his promise. He assigned Lieutenant Commander Worf to develop contingency plans for containing or, if absolutely necessary, eliminating Jean Grey should she lose control. The plans were classified, locked behind the highest security protocols. Jean knew they existed and found comfort in that knowledge. Someone was watching. Someone would stop her if necessary. 3 weeks after her arrival, Jean Grey stood in the Enterprise's observation lounge, watching stars streak past at warp speed. She wore a Starfleet uniform now, not quite a commissioned officer, but a civilian specialist with provisional rank. The colors felt strange after years in the X-Men's black and gold, but she was adapting. "Penny for your thoughts?" Deanna Troi entered quietly, 2 cups of tea in her hands. "I was just thinking about Professor Xavier," Jean said, accepting the tea gratefully. "He always said that mutants and humans could coexist if we proved ourselves worthy of trust. I failed at that in my universe. I let fear and power turn me into Dark Phoenix. Maybe here, in a universe that doesn't already have 1,000 superpowered beings, I can get it right." "You're being too hard on yourself," Troi said gently. "From what you've shared, Dark Phoenix happened because you faced impossible circumstances with insufficient support. Here, you have an entire Federation backing you. Or watching me. Waiting for me to fail. Perhaps both." Troi smiled. "But Jean, you've already succeeded in the most important way. You chose conscience over power. You chose to be more than what the Phoenix Force could make you. That's not failure, that's heroism." Jean sipped her tea, letting the warmth spread through her. Through the observation window, she could see a nebula in the distance, clouds of gas and dust where new stars would eventually form. Birth and death and rebirth. The Phoenix's eternal cycle, made manifest in normal cosmic processes. She thought about Q's challenge. Could power and compassion coexist? Could a cosmic force of destruction become a force for protection? Could Jean Grey, a woman who had burned galaxies, learn to be simply human despite the gods sleeping in her soul? She didn't know the answer. But for the first time in years, she had the opportunity to find out. "Counselor," Jean said quietly. "Thank you. For reaching into my mind when the Phoenix was taking over. For being my anchor. You saved my life. You saved yourself. Troy corrected. I just reminded you who you were. Then let me return the favor someday, Jean said. If you ever need a telepath for a difficult mission, or just someone who understands what it's like to feel too much, I'm here. They stood together in comfortable silence, two women who understood the burden of sensing what others kept hidden, watching the universe unfold before them. On the bridge, Captain Picard reviewed the latest communique from Starfleet Command. Admiral Nechayev wanted Jean Grey monitored continuously. The Vulcan Science Academy requested permission to study her. 3 separate Federation worlds had formally protested her presence, citing security concerns. The Romulan Empire had lodged an official complaint through diplomatic channels while simultaneously offering, through unofficial back channels, to provide intelligence on any threats to Jean's safety. Picard smiled despite the political headache. Jean Grey had been in their universe less than a month and had already complicated interstellar relations, challenged scientific assumptions, and forced the Federation to confront uncomfortable questions about power, trust, and what it truly meant to welcome the unknown. In other words, she fit perfectly. Mr. Data, Picard said, set course for the Caldera sector. There's a diplomatic situation developing that could benefit from Miss Grey's unique perspective. Course laid in, Captain? Engage. The Enterprise leapt to warp speed, carrying Jean Grey toward her new future, uncertain, dangerous, but filled with the possibility that even infinite power could learn humility, that even cosmic forces could choose compassion, and that a woman who had been both savior and destroyer could finally find balance.